Hi, Rala. Hi, Jonah. It's bedtime story time now. So it's a little different than the stories that I've done before. So I'm going to be reading to you. But this book that we're going to read, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, The Magical Car, by Ian Fleming, illustrated by John Birmingham. There aren't a whole lot of pictures in this book. It's not really like a picture storybook. So I'm going to read to you. This is a time for us to all get cozy, comfy. Like I've got on this nice, soft pullover, sweatshirt, hoodie. It's nice and comfy, so I can get relaxed. You might want to pause the video, get comfy yourself, maybe get a soft pillow or a blanket. Maybe it's bedtime, maybe you're already in bed and you're going to listen to the book. This is what I used to do with your dads when they were boys. I'd read to them at night. We'd read chapter books and they would listen and fall asleep. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. And we've got a couple of friends here. We've got Percy the penguin, and then this little guy. I don't know if he has a name, but he's been around for a long time. He was for maybe Jonathan? Maybe Jonathan. We just got the lights down low. Got a little lamp here so that I can see. And we'll start reading. I'm going to read about 10 to 15 minutes each time. And we'll see how many portions this ends up being. Pieces, episodes. So, here we go. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang went the great car's exhaust, and the big green Paragon Panther roared to life. The Pot family knew that their car was no ordinary car. The twins, Jeremy and Jemima, had noticed that right off. Her license plate read Gen 2, and that could be read Genii by knowing people. There was something magical about her, too. The Potts found that out soon enough. She could be an airplane or a boat when she'd had a mind to. So the Potts took a sea voyage from their English home and by chance found a gangster's hidden cave. But the cave belonged to an international mobster. Could the Potts escape the clutches of Joe the Monster and his gang? Their only hope, their only ally, was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And she was just a car. Or was she? It was like a little introduction. Part 1. Most motor cars are conglomerations. This is a long word for bundles of steel and wire and rubber and plastic, and electricity and oil and gasoline and water. And the toffee papers, that's kind of candy, toffee, it's a sticky candy. You pushed down the crack in the back seat last Sunday. Smoke comes out of the back of them and horn squawks out of the front. And they have white lights like big eyes in front and red lights behind. And that is about that. Just motor cars. 10 boxes on wheels for running about in. But some motor cars, mine for instance, and perhaps yours, are different. If you get to like them and understand them, if you are kind to them and don't scratch their paint or bang their doors, if you fill them up and pump them up with gas when they need it, if you keep them clean and polished and out of the rain and snow as much as possible, you will find, or you may find, that they become almost like persons, more than just ordinary persons, but magical persons. You don't believe me? All right then, you just read about this car I'm going to tell you about. I believe you can guess its name already. Her name, I should say, and then see if you don't agree with me. All motor cars aren't just conglomerations of machinery and fuel. Some are. Once upon a time, there was a family called Pott, P-O-T-T. There was the father, who had been in the Royal Navy, Commander Caractacus Pott. You may think that Caractacus sounds like quite a funny name, but in fact, the original Caractacus was the British chieftain who was a sort of Robin Hood in the year 48 and led an English army against the Roman invaders. I expect since then there have been plenty of other Caractacuses, but I don't know anything about them. Then there was the mother, Mimsy Pott, and a pair of 8-year-old twins, Jeremy Pott, who was a black-haired boy, and Jemima Pott, who was a golden-haired girl. And they lived in a wood beside a big lake with an island in the middle. On the other side of the lake, M20, that's a road, the big turnpike along the Dover Road swept away towards the sea. So I had the best of both worlds. Lovely woods for catching beetles and finding birds' eggs, with a lake for newts and tadpoles, and a fine big road close by so that they could go off and see the world if they wanted to. Well, almost, that is. But the truth of the matter was that they hadn't gotten enough money between them to buy a car. All the money they had went to necessities. Food and heat and light and clothes and all those boring things that one doesn't really notice, but things that families have to have. There was only a little bit left over for birthdays and Easter and Christmas presents and occasional surprise outings. You know, the things that really matter. But the Potts were a happy family who all enjoyed their lives, and since they were not in the least sorry for themselves, or sorry that they had no motor car to go whirling about in, we need not be sorry for them either. Now, Commander Caractacus Pott was an explorer and an inventor, and that may have been the reason why the Pott family was not very rich. Exploring places and inventing things can be very exciting indeed, but it is only very seldom that, in your explorations, you discover a really rare butterfly, or animal, or insect, or mineral, or plant that people will actually pay money to see. And it's practically never that you discover real treasure, like in books. Gold bars, diamonds, and jewels in an old oak chest. As for inventions, much the same troubles apply. People all over the world, in America, Russia, China, Japan, let alone England and Scotland and Wales and Ireland, are inventing or trying to invent things all the time. Every kind of thing, from rockets that fly to the moon to ways of making India rubber balls bounce higher. Everything is being invented or improved all the time by somebody, somewhere. Whether by teams of scientists in huge factories and laboratories, or by lonely men sitting and just thinking in tiny workshops without many tools. Just such a solitary inventor was Commander Caractacus Pott, and I am ashamed to say that, because he was always dreaming of impossible inventions and adventures and explorations in the remotest parts of the earth, he was generally known in the neighborhood as Commander Crackpot. That's not nice. We won't say that. You may think that's rude. Yeah, I just said that. And so it is. But Commander Pott was a humorous man, and he knew his own shortcomings very well. So when he heard that that was his nickname in the neighborhood, he was not at all cross. He just roared with laughter and said, "I'll show 'em," and disappeared into his workshop and didn't come out for a whole day and a whole night. During that time, smoke came out of the workshop chimney and there were a lot of delicious smells. And when the children put their ears to the locked door, they could hear mysterious bubblings and cooking poppings, if you know what I mean, but nothing else at all. When Commander Pott came out, he was so hungry that first of all he ate 4 fried eggs and bacon and drank a huge pot of coffee. And then he asked Mimsy to call Jeremy and Jemima, who were getting in an awful mess digging out a water rat's hole on the bank of the lake. They never caught the water rat, as he dug down faster than they did. The twins came and stood side by side looking at their father, wondering what his invention had been this time. Commander Pot's inventions were sometimes dull things like collapsible coat hangers, sometimes useless things like edible phonograph records, and sometimes clever things that only just, wouldn't work, like cubicle potatoes, square potatoes, easy to slice, easy to pack, easy to peel, but expensive to grow, each in its own little iron box, and so on. Commander Pot, looking very mysterious, dug in his pockets and produced a handful of what looked like round, colored sugar candies, each a bit bigger than a marble, wrapped in paper. And, still looking mysterious, he chose a red one for Jeremy and a green one for Jemima and handed them over. Well, candies are always candies, thought the children, even though they didn't look very exciting. So they unwrapped them and were just about to pop them in their mouths when Commander Pot cried, "Wait! Look at them first!" Very, very carefully. The children looked at the sweets and Commander Pot said, "What do you see? What's different about them?" And Jeremy and Jemima said with one voice, or almost one voice, "They've got two small holes drilled through the middle of them." Commander Pot nodded solemnly. "Now, suck those candies." So Jeremy and Jemima popped the candies into their mouths and sucked busily away, looking at each other with raised eyebrows, as much to say, "What do you notice? What do you taste? Mine tastes like strawberry. Mine tastes like peppermint." And both pairs of eyes seemed to say, "They're just candy, round, hard candy, and our tongues can feel the holes in them. Otherwise, they're just like any other candy." But Commander Pot, who could easily see what they were thinking, suddenly held up his hand. "Now stop, both of you. Twiddle the candies around with your tongues until they're held between your teeth, with the two holes pointing outwards. Open your lips and blow." Well, of course, the children laughed so much watching each other's faces that they nearly swallowed the candies. But finally, by turning their backs on each other, they managed to compose themselves and fixed the candies between their teeth. And then they blew. And do you know what? A wonderful shrill whistle came out, almost like a toy steam engine. The children were so excited that they went on whistling until Commander Pot sternly told them to stop. He held up his hand. "Now go on until I tell you to whistle again." And he took out his watch and carefully observed the minute hand. Now, this time, Jeremy and Jemima didn't laugh so much, but they managed to get their candies, which of course were much smaller than before, between their teeth, and they blew like crazy. This time, because they had hollowed out the holes still more, the whistle was a deep one, like one of the new diesel trains going into a tunnel, and they found that they could play all sorts of tricks, like changing the tone by blocking up one hole with their tongues and half closing their lips so as to make a buzzing whistle, and lots of other variations. But then, what with their sucking and blowing, the bit between the two holes collapsed and the candies made one last deep hoot, and then crunch, as all candy does in the end, into little bits. Jeremy and Jemima both jumped up and down with excitement at Commander Pot's invention and begged for more. Then Commander Pot gave them each a little bag full of the candies and told them to go out into the garden and practice every whistling tune they could think up, as after lunch he was going to take them to Scrumptious Limited, the big candy people in their local town, to give a demonstration to Lord Scrumptious, who owned the factory. And as they ran out into the garden, Commander Pot called after them, "They're called crackpots, crackpot whistling sweets. And you know what, my chickabiddies? They're going to buy us a motor car." But the children were already dancing away into the woods, making every kind of whistle you can think of, at the same time sucking like mad at their delicious candies. There really seemed to be something special about Commander Potts' invention. Just a little touch of genius. Well, anyway, I can tell you this. Lord Scrumptious thought so. After he heard Jeremy and Jemima whistling in his office, he sent them out into the factory, and they danced around among the workers, whistling and handing out candies from their pockets, so that very soon they had all the workers in the factory sucking and whistling, and everyone laughed so much that all the Scrumptious candy machines came to a stop. Lord Scrumptious had to call Jeremy and Jemima away before they brought the whole production of Scrumptious candies and chocolates to a grinding halt. So Jeremy and Jemima went back into Lord Scrumptious's grand office, and there was their father being paid £1,000, $1,000, by the Scrumptious Company treasurer, and signing a paper which said he would get an additional 1 shilling on every 1,000 crackpot whistling sweets sold by Scrumptious Limited. Jeremy and Jemima didn't think that sounded like very much, but when I let you into a secret and tell you that Scrumptious Limited sells 5 million every year of just one of their candies called Chock-a-Hoop, you can work out for yourself that perhaps, just perhaps, Commander Caractacus Pot wasn't making such a bad bargain after all. So then everyone shook hands, and Lord Scrumptious gave Jeremy and Jemima each a big free box of samples of all the candies he made. The 3 of them hurried off back to Mimsy to tell her the good news. And straight away, the whole family hired a taxi and went to the bank to deposit the check for £1,000, and then they all went off together to buy a car. That's where we're going to stop right now. And then there'll be more tomorrow. Good night, my loves. Good night, sweethearts.